Hi, welcome back. This is my second video in my series on ADHD for ADHD Awareness Month, which is the month of October. Sorry it took me a while to get this one up, but ADHD problems. So today what I wanted to talk to you about is how ADHD has affected me in my professional work life. And I'm going to look at this from a few different angles. One, in my day-to-day work tasks. Two, in how I relate with my colleagues. And three, how it has affected me with my evaluations and my interactions with my supervisors and the administration. I'll drop some links down below to show you the different timestamps so you can jump to those areas that interest you. And hopefully what I share can be helpful to you if you have ADHD or if you have colleagues or people who report to you that have ADHD. So first things first, in my day-to-day life as a teacher, as a professor, ADHD has really impacted me in several different ways. And one of the ways that I found it really affected me the most was in just my day-to-day organization. When I started teaching, I didn't have a set curriculum, and I was kind of given free rein, which on one hand was really nice, but I didn't have anything that really helped me plan out my days and weeks and quarters effectively. And that made it really hard for me at times to stay on track and to know that I was covering everything that I really needed to be. And so part of that was, I think, how I was set up as a new teacher, but also I didn't have some of the skills that would have allowed me to set that up for myself. The other thing that really affected me is being able to keep up with grading. That's a problem for all teachers, and especially English teachers. We have to grade a lot. In my college classes, all of my composition students are required to write 20 pages of formal writing a semester. And for instance, my first semester teaching as a full-time college professor, I had 5 sections that can have up to 25, 26 students in each. So that adds up to a lot of papers. And I very easily get behind on my grading. It's hard for me to motivate myself to get started with grading. And I will oftentimes find myself procrastinating by doing other things that need to be done, other things that are productive to being a teacher, responding to emails or planning lessons, but that allows sometimes that work to get piled up. And so I have to find ways to mitigate that. And there's a few things that I have found work for me. One is giving verbal feedback instead of handwriting or typing feedback. I think it allows me to be more holistic. And I have found a system with a Chrome add-on, Kaizena, Kaizena, that also allows me to save some of the more common comments that I give and link to lessons and remedial activities for my students to do. And so that has helped me speed up the process while still giving really high quality feedback. And I find it more enjoyable. So that helps me get more done at a time. I've also discovered deciding like what needs to be graded versus what needs to be given a quick skim. I've implemented using some group work, which lowers the number of things that I assign, and also finding other things that can be auto-graded and still use personalized feedback based off of the students' answers. So they're still getting that personalized feedback without me having to retype it or re-say it every single time, especially in this online world. So if you're interested in learning more about how I've saved time grading, let me know in the comments and I will do a video specifically on some of the tools that I use for that. The other thing that has hit me for my day-to-day teaching is something that was not a problem with me when I was teaching high school and middle school, but became a little bit more of a problem when I started teaching college. And that was sort of the time management during the actual class. And this is because I had bells and students who were constantly giving me cues when I taught 7 through 12. But when I switched to college, there are no bells, and I very easily would either start to run over or I would get myself confused because the times are different depending on the day and even each semester. And I would like rush to finish. And then one time I was so impressed, the students all stayed an extra 10 minutes past the end of class. I, rushed to finish what we were doing, get back to my office, and realized I had ended class 20 minutes early. So they hadn't stayed late. No wonder they weren't getting up to leave. So that doesn't happen all the time anymore, but it used to happen. So now I use a lot of timers to help me stay on track, both for activities during class and then just knowing that I need to start wrapping up, or I don't need to start wrapping up, so to speak. In terms of my colleagues, that's a whole nother area that my ADHD affects me. One thing for me is my impulsivity shows up in the way I speak. And so when I'm in meetings or on committees and things, I have a tendency to talk too much. Sometimes I can realize I'm doing it. Sometimes I don't realize I'm doing it until afterwards. I have a very hard time just reining it in. And so that's something that I'm consistently working on. I do now tell colleagues, especially ones that I'm close to, that they can, send me a covert message that I'm doing too much and I need to stop, and I'll take that well. I also have learned that in this world where we're doing our meetings on Zoom, the more I keep myself on mute, which is good practice anyway, but the better it is, because sometimes I'll start to speak, not realize I was on mute, and then realize, you know what, you don't actually have to say that right now. And I've also found that doodling or playing like a mindless game while listening often helps me kind of channel some of that extra energy that I have. The other way it has affected me with my colleagues is that I know I get them off task. So this is probably better now that we're not all in the same place, but when our offices are near each other, sometimes I'll stop by with a valid question and then suddenly, we launch into these really long conversations. Oftentimes they're very productive conversations about work, but it does disrupt their flow, and I feel bad about it. So it's something that I'm trying to work on and remember. Some things can be sent in an email. Sometimes you can use, the phone and call their office and ask them the quick question, because I don't want to distract them. Or if sometimes when they come to talk to me, even if I'm in the middle of something, I allow them to get me off of track for too long as well. And lastly, when it comes to administration and my evaluations, this was something that was interesting once I got diagnosed, and I thought back to some of my earlier observations before my diagnosis, and I realized that some of the things that were being noted were actually symptoms of my ADHD. So there was a few comments about the general cleanliness of my office or my desk area. They were often in disarray and very disorganized. And honestly, that was a struggle for me. I often had to make a decision. Do I get these papers graded or do I clean up my desk? It was just that was not the highest priority for me. And it wasn't something that came naturally for me. I also had some comments about whether I spoke too much or listened to other people. And that always kind of bothers me because I do talk too much, but I do listen. And I think sometimes people think because I'm talking so much that I'm not hearing them, but I do. And I think I'm usually pretty good at actually remembering what people said and things like that. I wish I had known, because I think if I had been able to advocate for myself and my diagnosis, that maybe we could have worked out some plans or some coaching to figure out better ways for me to handle some of that stuff. And I think sometimes that's things that get left behind, where people are willing to help you with your lesson plans or something like that, but they don't realize that maybe there's these other aspects of being a teacher that you also need help with. The other thing that I have to be careful of is like knowing what I can say and what I shouldn't say to, different higher ups. I tend to be somebody who I know who's over me and I have respect for them, but I feel generally like I can talk to anybody that I want to, and I can share my thoughts. And so especially in the higher ed world, I've had to be a little bit more conscious of that and try to learn to, again, rein myself in a little bit more as we go. So those are kind of the big overarching things. The nice thing is that I started teaching as, technology really got better and better. And so a lot of technological tools are available to me to help me manage some of these symptoms. And that's been helping a lot, and I think going pretty well. So if you're interested in some of the other tools I use to keep myself organized, on task, and to keep myself having positive relationships with the people that I work with and with my students, please let me know. I hope this was helpful for you, and I hope to get at least one more ADHD video out before the end of the month. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.